For this month's painting, I've selected Water Lilies, which is part of a series by the Impressionist Claude Monet. He painted the series at his home from 1897 until his death in 1926. His home in Normandy was near the River Epte. It's now maintained by the Claude Monet Foundation, and the water garden, which is depicted in the painting, can be visited today. The water garden was formed when Monet rerouted a branch of the Epte to run through some of his own land. Many of the paintings in this series Monet painted when he was suffering from cataracts. Most of the earliest paintings in the series were of the Japanese footbridge over his pond. When viewed in the order in which they were painted, Monet seems to become less interested in the rest of the garden and more interested specifically in the water lilies. This particular painting is from the third set in the series. His signature on the bottom right reads Claude Monet, 1906. By that year, Monet had lost all interest in anything else and was now painting entirely within the perimeter of the pond, looking straight down at it from above, the sky and trees only being visible in their reflections on the surface. This was 20 years before he died. Within his garden, Monet became increasingly focused on water lilies until, by the final 20 years of his life, he painted them and only them. He said that one instant, one aspect of nature contains it all. Monet came to find that water lilies visualized everything he saw in nature, and therefore that everything he wanted to express about nature in his paintings he was able to express simply by painting water lilies. Latour-Marliac founded a water lily nursery in the commune of Le Temple-sur-Lot in 1875 and introduced his genus to the public at the 1889 Paris Exposition. At the exposition, they were exhibited in a water garden in front of the Trocadero, where they won first prize in their category. And it was also at that exposition that they caught the attention of Monet, who ordered some from Latour-Marliac in order to paint them. Monet's invoices for his orders from Latour-Marliac are now displayed in the Latour-Marliac Museum, which is how we know that he also made a second order in 1904, which was the last order he made before painting the third set in the series, which includes this painting. But that second order only includes one water lily from Latour-Marliac, which is a Nymphaea atropurpurea, meaning dark purple. This had been crossbred in 1901. The other three that he ordered in that second order were from a provider known as Dreer. The first was Arethusa, which was a rose-red water lily, crossbred in 1902. This was likely named after the nymph from Greek mythology who fled her home of Arcadia beneath the sea and emerged as a freshwater fountain. The other two Nymphaea that Monet ordered from Dreer were William Falkner, which was a dark red water lily bred in 1899, and James Bryden, a dark pink water lily crossbred in 1889. The website of the Latour-Marliac Museum states that historical works relating to Claude Monet's most famous paintings make little or no mention of Latour-Marliac's role in their creation. The painting is now owned by the Art Institute of Chicago. Its conservation and science laboratories have forensically examined the painting to determine which pigments Monet used. The first pigment he used was lead white, which helped create what they call the luminous high-key opacity of his paintings. Monet incorporated lead white into his palettes to adjust its tones, and also used it for texturing by creating a thick impasto on the surface of his paintings and building up multiple layers. He used French ultramarine, which originally was one of the rarest pigments, and so was used before the early 19th century to denote wealth and status. But by the time Monet painted water lilies, French ultramarine had become so widely manufactured that it was half the price of cobalt blue, which Monet also used in water lilies. French ultramarine is warmer, whereas cobalt blue is cooler, and Monet combined both pigments with other colours to effectively double how many shades of blue the water had. He used Red Lakes, a deep translucent shade, which he combined with vermilion, a warmer opaque red, to paint one of the flowers in the top left, and upon close inspection of the flower they were used to paint, they appear to have been kept separate on the palette and not mixed until first painted onto the canvas together. He used viridian, which he mixed with other pigments, including a synthetic form of malachite, to create different shades of green for the vegetation on the pond, and he often mixed viridian with yellow on the canvas to create the hue of the sunlit leaves. And he also used cobalt violet, a light-coloured pigment composed of cobalt arsenate, which is notable for two reasons. Firstly, cobalt violet was a more expensive pigment, and secondly, it was a distinctive bright purple, whereas contemporary Impressionists preferred to use a range of more subtle mauve shades. So there was a standard alternative to cobalt violet, but Monet preferred to pay the expense for the specific pigment he wanted. He used cobalt violet to paint the shadowy, unlit areas of the pond and to add sharp contrast to the water lily flowers. At first, this painting is just a pond, but the longer one looks at it, the more unique shades and colours one sees, because of how Monet created dynamic contrasts between colours and textures. This was painted over multiple sessions, and Monet used superimposition in order to create specific colours. Some layers were applied after allowing time for previously applied layers to dry, whereas others were applied directly over the previously applied layers while they were still wet, which means that in some places only the final layer can be seen, and the previously applied layers beneath it only provides texture, whereas in other places the final layer and the previously applied layers beneath it can both be seen, creating a colour that's the combination of the shades of all visible layers. The painting measures 89.9 by 94.1 centimetres, which when framed becomes 103.2 by 107 by 5.8 centimetres. This painting was donated to the Art Institute of Chicago by Martin A. Ryerson. Ryerson was an American lawyer, businessman, philanthropist, and art collector who became a trustee of the Institute in 1890. His collection had originally been displayed in his mansion at 4849 South Drexel Boulevard, and this painting was one of 16 by Monet that Ryerson owned. Ryerson died in Wisconsin in 1932, aged 75 to 76, and his collection was then donated to the Institute in 1933, and it's now part of the Institute's permanent collection. The Institute is most well known for its collection of Impressionist and Post-Impressionist works, widely regarded as one of the finest outside France. It also displays Bedroom in Arles, which I covered earlier in this series. This is one of multiple paintings in the Water Lilies series owned by the Institute, amongst a total of 33 of Monet's overall works, which is the largest collection of Monet works outside Paris. The Institute also provided a lot of the information that I used for this video, so I'd like to specifically credit Kim Muir, the research conservator, Ken Sutherland, and Andrew W. Mellon, Director of Scientific Research.